Hello there guys, what is going on? Son of Chelsea back here again for another edition of Let's Talk Chelsea. Once again, got some interesting topics to discuss with you, and pretty much the transfer window is over now, but the transfer stories haven't stopped, as you can expect. There's so much fallout because of the transfer window, Chelsea not signing anyone, and of course there's a range of opinions on that, which we're going to get into. Interestingly, before I go into my first story, it sort of links into my first story today, which was my article for the Chelsea Echo, which got released earlier this week. Link will be in the description box below. And it was about Chelsea's January transfer window, my thoughts on it, my reaction to it, sort of summing up the whole window, and why, in my opinion, Chelsea not signing anyone in this window might turn out to be a good thing. I'm probably in a minority there, but I'm going to explain my opinions with the first story, which is from The Athletic, which is all about Chelsea's January transfer window. Mertens, Cavani and Rondon. Chelsea stalled striker hunt as club gambled that the current squad can secure fourth. Now this article sort of goes into the whole window, goes into Chelsea not signing anyone, especially a striker, which sort of became more prevalent as the window went on. They talk about Salomon Rondon being offered to Chelsea. Of course, he's in China now, was at Newcastle last year, West Brom previously. A decent striker, but Chelsea apparently rejected that move. Looked into Dries Mertens, Edison Cavani, why those deals fell through, why they never got going basically. Even though the club had met with Mertens apparently before the window, and the club, after that CAS decision was made, alerted agents they wanted to do business. But it was interesting to me, and as I said in my article, if you read it, was how, firstly, Chelsea's major targets weren't available. Jadon Sancho, Ben Chilwell, other players, other names like Werner and Dembele, those clubs weren't going to go into negotiations, or the player didn't want to move. That was very much expected. I remember making a video early on in the window saying that I think to me was obvious, and really the January transfer window is always like that. With a few exceptions, it's usually you're going to get a short-term target over a long one, which usually happens in the summer. In rare cases like Virgil van Dijk and Bruno Fernandes, there are differences to them, but the argument I make, because there was a lot of reaction to it, and naturally a lot of frustration, people talking about somehow the club had betrayed Frank Lampard, because of course Lampard is frustrated over the lack of a signing. But the interesting thing to me was that, the argument, and I make the argument in the article, that this was somehow sort of a betrayal and going against a new direction for Chelsea. And I'd argue that's not the case. I would argue Chelsea not signing anyone in this window, rushing to sign a striker that maybe didn't suit us or was very much a short-term option, is completely, in a new direction for Chelsea. I pinpoint Fernando Torres. Agallo, to me, who went to Manchester United, feels to me like a Chelsea signing. It would be a signing Chelsea would have made in the past, just based on a short-term option. And the argument I make is that, and I think it's a fair one, and they make the argument in the article as well, that Chelsea probably looked at it and went, we could sign someone like a Cavani, like a Mertens for a big fee. I mean, Mertens, we can wait till the summer to get him for free, so why would we sign him now? Especially because apparently Napoli wanted him back on loan. That would make no sense for Chelsea. They want a striker now. And as well, waiting for that summer window and hoping Chelsea get Champions League football. That is a big risk. That is a big gamble. But I can understand the club looking at it and thinking wider and thinking longer term, and thinking, why bring in a player that could potentially hinder our transfer plans in the future? Why bring in a player that potentially doesn't want to be here? It's going to cost us a lot, especially like a Mertens or a Cavani. And I can understand that theory, and I actually applaud the club for doing that. A number of clubs didn't make a move in the window. You can understand why, when those players just simply aren't available, or your first choice targets aren't there. And I understand sort of the reaction of fans being frustrated over that. And it is a gamble the club have made, and they're hoping it's going to be a good move and a good decision, because if the club don't get Champions League football, it's going to hinder the summer business, of course. But I can understand it. Let me know your opinions and on the article and Chelsea not signing anyone in the comments below. The next story is about Chelsea potentially signing someone, but in the summer, and re-signing Jeremie Boga from Sassuolo. Of course, Boga was a product of Chelsea's academy. came through a couple of years ago, even started, I think, the first game of the season under Conte, and then was sold to Sassuolo for about 3.5 million. And the Independent are reporting that the Blues explore re-signing Jeremie Boga from Sassuolo after holding talks. Chelsea could be set to re-sign Jeremie Boga from Sassuolo this summer, according to the Italian club's president Giovanni Carnevale. Sassuolo signed Boga in 2018 for just 3.5 million, but the Blues inserted a buyback clause. The French winger, 23, has finally settled in Serie A this season, hitting 6 goals and contributing 3 assists. This is interesting, and I actually think this is a bit of a no-brainer move for Chelsea, especially looking into the summer. Firstly, Willian and Pedro, both of their futures very much up in the air. Willian's still yet to sign a new contract. Of course, his comments recently make you believe he wants to stay at Chelsea for the long term. But on the other hand, there is that Barcelona link that's always been there, and you can understand maybe him going to Barcelona in summer. Pedro, I think, is definitely off. I just can't see Pedro staying any longer. Even though he did start against Leicester, I just don't think Pedro will be a Chelsea player next year. I think it's a natural time for him to move on. It's interesting with Boga because, of course, some of his amazing strikes recently, like last weekend, go up on social media and everyone buzzes about them and says, we need to get Boga back. The good thing is, it's a very good deal. I mean, that buyback clause is very smart from Chelsea. And just looking at the numbers of Boga compared to our current wingers, they are slightly better, but slightly similar as well. Christian Pulisic has 6 goals and 2 assists. Willian has 5 goals and 4 assists. And HUDSON-ODOI has 2 goals and 4 assists. I'm not counting Pedro because he hasn't really played that much this season. And just looking at who naturally will probably be here next year. I think it's a bit of a no-brainer deal replacing those players. Of course, Jadon Sancho's name consistently gets brought up, but this is a deal that I think naturally could very much happen, and I think it's a player that Lampard could bring into his system. A good age, a good time, could potentially be coming into goals. That's an area Chelsea need to improve, and Chelsea need to improve on goals in a lot of areas, but looking at probably what Lampard prioritises, looking at that front three, where he can get goals, Boga potentially coming in from the left, which is an area where Chelsea have a lot of players who are right-footed, having a tendency to play on the right, and sort of looking at the best combination in that area. And I think that Boga probably would see the opportunity to come back as a good one, especially under Lampard and especially under the current sort of structure of Chelsea and transitioning, and probably could see it a bit like Matic did when he came back to the club a few years ago and really found his feet and really suddenly became an integral part of the squad. I just don't see how this deal couldn't happen, especially for a low fee. And with players departing, it's a deal that could excite me and I think could be a hidden gem for Chelsea, even though they know the player. And it'd be another case of Chelsea buying back a player they let go a couple of years ago, but it's not for an extortionate fee, unlike Matic and Aki has been linked recently as well. So I think this deal will likely happen in the summer. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And the final story is about Ruben Loftus-Cheek and him playing his first game in almost 9 months. This is for Chelsea's development squad the other day against Brentford B. It was behind closed doors at Cobham. Ruben Loftus-Cheek posted a photo of it, of him playing with the ball, and it was a wonderful picture, and it really brought a smile to every Chelsea fan's face, I'm sure, and especially mine. Ruben's one of my favourite players in the Chelsea squad, and that's one of the things that has been very joyous about supporting Chelsea in recent seasons, is seeing Loftus-Cheek come through. And it was such a depressing thing to see him get that long-term injury when he was coming into form. He was coming into the form of his life, and he was looking to start to fulfil some of that potential we'd hoped and be a player that Chelsea have craved for so long. Naturally, as he's got back into first team training, we've seen those images come through. That's excited fans. And now it very much looks like, as we have this winter break now, Ruben could be ready to get back into the first team very soon. I think about that Liverpool game in the FA Cup as, I think, a prime time for Ruben to come back and especially start a game. We know with players, especially Callum Hudson-ODOI, Rudiger, other players that have been injured, Chelsea this year, especially with the way injuries have gone, have been very patient with players, and especially Ruben, this amount of time out, you can understand why the club are going to be cautious to put him right back into first team action and not put him into intense situations. So even 60 minutes for the development squad is progress. It's been such a delayed process. I spoke about this on Let's Talk Chelsea a few weeks ago about Ruben, his setbacks, how difficult it's been for him to get back, and it's so exciting to see him come back. Of course, there's going to be so much debate and intrigue to where Ruben plays and how that affects that midfield, because we don't know what the formation's really going to be in the long term. Is it going to be a 3 in midfield? Is it going to be a 2 in central midfield? You know, a 3-4-3? How Ruben fits into that? How that affects the career of Mason Mount as well? Kovacic, Kante, Jorginho? How all of that plays out? I think if Ruben comes back to be the player that we saw at the back end of last season, Chelsea have got an incredible player on their hands. I really do believe that everything he was offering at the back end of last season was incredible, and it really was something Chelsea have craved for so long in that area. And I really hope he comes back and fulfills that potential, because I just think all those things that Chelsea fans have been frustrated with in recent times, a bit of invention, a bit of drive from midfield, that energy, I think as well, the thing that really impressed me of Ruben, not only his goal scoring and an eye for goal and making those runs, creativity, taking a shot from outside the box, but as well his intelligence on the ball, making right decisions with being pressed. Seeing him up against the likes of Liverpool, the likes of Manchester United last year at points, and seeing him make smart decisions with the ball in tight areas, I think is really impressive. And I think it was something that really came on with his game. And I know how much everyone's excited, so it's going to be, I'm pretty sure, an emotional occasion when Ruben comes back, whenever it is. We're not sure when. It could be a couple of weeks' time. It could be a month's time, just depending on his, recovery and when the club feel he's ready and when Lampard feels he's match fit. I really hope he gets back to his best form, gets back in there, gets minutes, and becomes Chelsea's best midfielder, which I think he can be. So that is it for this edition of Let's Talk Chelsea. Let me know your thoughts on everything I discussed in the comments below. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. If you did enjoy it, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell to never miss an upload. Follow me on Twitter @SonOfChelsea. And I'll see you again.